The New York Indian Film Festival is North America's oldest and most prestigious film festival, which features cinema from India and the Indian diaspora. Presented by the Indo-American Arts Council, NYIFF celebrates alternative, art house, and independent cinema from the global Indian community. The 22nd annual New York Indian Film Festival will be held on May 7th until May 14th. In this virtual interactive session, filmmakers Nikhil Mahajan, director of film Godavari, filmmaker Ajoy Bose, director of The Beatles and India, An Enduring Love Affair, and Suman Golamudi, executive director for the Indo-American Arts Council, are present with me. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to see you guys virtually. So starting with you, Suman, how difficult or easy was it to curate this virtual screening festival? This would be a third year of streaming virtually, I believe.
That's right. And first of all, thank you, Nidhi, for inviting us into your studio today. And thank you for covering our festival.
Pleasure.
This is our third year virtual, but we are happy that it was a difficult decision for us when we had to plan versus going physical versus going virtual. But when we had to decide, it was the peak of Omicron, and we had to take the safety and health of the audiences also into consideration. But I'm happy to tell you that the closing night, we decided that we will just have it in person with the off chance that things will settle down and we will be able to do a physical event. And I'm happy that we are doing the closing night in person. And we have a fantastic film, as Ajay will speak about it further. I'm looking forward to welcoming everybody back into the theaters, and look forward to meeting and saying hello to all our New York audiences.
Great. So starting with you, Nikhil, next. You have been a festival favorite for the past few years. I believe Pune 52 was also showcased here. New filmmakers often look for a jump start through festival entries and big wins. You're already a name to reckon with in the Marathi film industry. Why take the festival route for Godavari?
Yeah, no, I think I always tell Asim that, New York, NYIFF is like home now. It's like this is going to be my third title playing the festival we had. My first film, Pune 52, opened there. And last year, my film, June, which I had written and produced, also played and won an award there. So it's always nice to be there. And I think why the festival route is that I think it opens up the audience. Like I always feel that my films are introduced to America through NYIFF, and it's always nice to reach out to an audience who would normally not opt for a Marathi film, even if it is released wide, even in the US. Like my film, the Godavari will be releasing everywhere, but the viewership and the patronage that a festival would give me, not necessarily these people would turn up for a Marathi release. So it's just for raising awareness for the film, and it's always nice to present the film in front of a very discerning, very I think the New York Indian Film Festival audience has like this tremendous passion for cinema, which I've experienced firsthand when 52 was screened there almost 10 years ago now. So it's crazy, but it feels like yesterday. But I think it always is nice to showcase your films to people who love cinema. And as filmmakers, I think that's what we're looking for, always.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to seeing Godavari. So, Ajoy, you have written books on the emergency and a book on Mayavati. And you have also written a book on Beatles in India across the universe. So, politics, biography, rock and roll music, how do these diverse subjects inspire you and fit into one person at the same time?
Well, I mean, indeed, it's been a magical mystery tour for me as far as the Beatles book and then the film is concerned. because I've been all my life writing on politics, both also on television, because I've been known as a television commentator, for many years. But I've always been a Beatles fanatic. I'm from the Beatles generation, and I grew up with the Beatles. And when my publishers, Penguin Random House, came to me and said, listen, we know you're a Beatles fanatic, and we know that your writing skills are very well known. So we want a fan book rather than an expert book. I sort of set about to rediscover my favorite band, from my early teens, and I found that I didn't know my band at all, really. I really realized that not only was the Beatles a very unique group, but the role India played in the evolution of the Beatles was far, far more than is known, really. And I think that is the thing about the book and the film, that we have really explored for the first time the India connection.
The India connection.
So as you know, the Beatles weaves magic even today, more than half a century after they've broken up. And for an Indian and an Indian abroad, particularly, I think it's a very proud moment that there was so much of India in the Beatles, and this cultural auspices that happened between the Beatles and a very faraway land and culture, navigated by these two gurus, Maharishi Vaishyogi and Pandit Ravi Shankar. It is really a very, very interesting stuff.
I see. So when I read E.M. Forster's novel, A Passage to India, one of the themes was the muddle, the mystery that the central character feels in India. The process of finding oneself or finding India can be disorienting, mysterious, and painful. Do the characters in Godavari and the Beatles and India, an enduring love affair, go through the process of self-discovery? Starting with you, Nikhil.
I think so, yes. I think Godavari is, as maybe viewers may not be aware, it is the name of a river in Western India. It is called as the Ganges of the South. And famously, most Hindus in this area, like Western Maharashtra, Western India, and South India as well, would perform the last rites of their deceased in the Godavari River. So it's a river that holds tremendous importance in terms of both religious and cyclical life and death space for a majority of the population of the Western India. So, and the film speaks about life and death in a very matter-of-fact way. I think the film was a direct result of the death of our very dear friend and filmmaker, Mr. Nishikant Kamath. I think he died, and that's what prompted us to make Godavari as a film, because I never planned to make another Marathi feature film. I had other plans that I was pursuing and working towards. But his demise just pushed us into doing something for him. And in a very strange way, I made a feature after 6 years. And that was because one of my favorite filmmakers had passed on. And just in many ways, while leaving, he just pushed me to make one more film. And this is that film. So I think it's just the cycle and the nature of life and death, and that is exactly what the protagonist, who we also named Nishikant, goes through. What he experiences when he is confronted by the idea of death in different ways and how his life changes after that is pretty much what the film is about. So yeah, it is very much about self-discovery, and not just about discovery of your own self, but also about the cities that we live in and the rivers that we have grown to hate etc., etc. It's a discovery about a lot of things actually.
So that's a revelation. The film is basically a tribute to your friend and a colleague filmmaker. So did you feel that you needed a closure? That is why this film came about?
Not necessarily for closure, but Mr. Kamath, he loved films. He's one of the he's made big Hindi blockbusters like Drishyam and Mumbai Meri Jaan, and he's was one of the most celebrated filmmakers in India. And his untimely demise kind of made us uh, really want to do something for him because when he passed away, it was the lockdown and we couldn't do much. We couldn't even see him one last time. So it was very emotional for Jitendra, who's a co-producer and also the lead actor of this film, Jitendra Joshi, and me, that we wanted to do something for him. And what better way to pay tribute to a filmmaker than make a film for him?
Absolutely.
So we just thought, okay, we are just going to pool in whatever little money we had saved. So we made this film with our own money, and we just made it. There was no agenda. We didn't had no plans of selling it, and we don't know what was going to happen of it. And fortunately, it's turned to be a very successful film for us, even in that sense of the word, because it's acquired by Geo Studios and it will be released all over India and hopefully worldwide anytime between July and September. Now, so we are looking at that. So I think it's a very fulfilling feeling to start a film without any end goal,
right,
and to find the goal anyway.
Well said. So Nikhil, what about the challenges that you faced during the making of your film?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge, I think, was that we shot in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh.
It was just very crazy. The first lockdown was just lifted, and we were shooting in Nasik, which is a city which has like old ghats, pretty much like Banaras, and it's a very heavily, densely populated city. And we had, of course, a crew of at least 120 people.
Wow.
And
they didn't have strict lockdown rules back then.
There was Mr. Vikram Gokhale,
right,
Neena Kulkarni. So these guys were on set, and we were really concerned, about their health, and we didn't want anybody to fall ill or so that was for us the biggest challenge, was to ensure that we can create a bubble. And of course, none of us had shot like this before, so of course it was a lot of learning. And to shoot in a bubble environment, how to figure that out, because we are comparatively a low budget production. So to ensure that we are getting the people tested regularly, and how do we kind of make sure that everybody's health is uncompromised and people are safe, and still make the film keeping in intact the vision with which it is being planned, was the biggest challenge. And apart from that, I think all challenges, the standard, like we don't have enough money, we don't have enough number of days, and all of that was pretty much, it's always there no matter what film you're making. But I think for us, it was a crazy experience to shoot in this time, because you just don't know what's happening, right? So it's very, very, very weird that you're constantly worrying about your crew and your cast, and it's just, I just hope that time never comes again. It's just very, very bad.
So a crew of over 100 people, it's like, a big number, a good number. What was the logistics like? I mean, you did not have like any strict lockdown rules. How did you break them, or how did you manage this film? Because I've seen films come on Amazon where they've been shot only in one room, or the crew or the story, it just involves 2 people, 3 people, the lockdown diaries. But you actually made a film outdoors during the pandemic. How did you manage?
So the lockdown had eased, so we didn't break any rules. There was no lockdown, but COVID was still pretty much there. Number of cases was less, but it was still a very active threat. What we did was we booked out entire hotels, and we created a bubble system. So we had a very strict protocol that people cannot go outside their rooms after backup, and nobody can go and party, and you can't do things that you can't go explore the city. You simply cannot. So there was very designated vehicles that would take people back to their rooms, and food was served pre-packed. There was no buffet happening like there is on a normal Indian film set. We had the set was marked up in color codes. Like we had the green zone, which is your
Oh,
light guys, and your everybody, your B and C crew is there, and then your orange zone where your assistants and everybody else, and then there's a red zone which is only the actors.
wow.
So we had restricted people who can go to the red zone, and then they were not allowed to have contact with anybody from the green zone. So it was just a lot of management, and despite all this, we finished the film in 17 days. It's a film that has been shot in
Wow.
17 days, because we just didn't have any more money in that. So
Hmm.
it was planned um, very extensively and
Mm-hmm.
in great detail to
Hmm.
achieve it. And and I think it is doable because by the end of it, none of us contracted COVID.
Right.
We all came back
Mm-hmm.
negative, and so I think that was, and we were really concerned about
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Vikram Gokhale, and primarily him, because he's really old and he was very frail at the time, and it's very kind of him to come and do that role. And I think when you watch the film, you'll know how important he is to the film. So yeah, so that was something else.
So that means your pre-production must have been like really strong to the last detail, from storyboarding to each and every person allocated the job they're supposed to do. How strongly do you believe in pre-production?
No, I'm a big believer in pre-production, and irrespective of budget, like right now I'm working on a Hindi film, which is a fairly big budget film. I still believe in prepping because I think it's important. You can really visualize what you want to do. You can plan things out, and then if you have an original plan, I think it helps you to be creative in case things go wrong. So I come from that school of thought where I really prepare a lot before going on to set. So that's just the kind of filmmaker I am. I know
Super.
filmmakers who make great films without a lot of prep. I just don't think I'm talented enough. So
A-
I do prep a lot.
To each his own. So, how did Godavari change you as a person and as a filmmaker? Talk about your personal growth.
I think it really calmed me down. I think that is one thing that Godavari really did, is that it really brought a lot of calm to my life. And it's not just making the film. I think it's being there and experiencing life by the river so closely that like I always tell this to anybody who I meet, or all my friends and family who I met after filming. Like if you um, if you set foot in that river, it's just you just feel a very strong energy like that. It's very tough to kind of put it in words, but there is something very magnetic about that river. Mm. There's a quote by Heraclitus, which was a starting point for me to start writing this film, was that you never step in the same river twice. Either you
True.
change or the river changes. It is something that I experienced firsthand with Godavari, and I'm fairly certain that the river is the same, and I have changed. So it is. I have become definitely much more calmer, and I'm much more at peace with myself, and I've stopped worrying about the small things like this.